Hi everyone, good evening. Good evening to you. In about 2 minutes, we are going to kickstart. So welcome to everyone that has joined. Let me just bring out the participant list here a second. So Alexander, thank you for joining. Daniel, Jide, Mike, TK, thank you all for joining. So I know more people will be joining as well. We are also going. Just a second. Sorry about that, guys. So we are set to go now. So welcome to everyone. Thank you for joining. So like I said, we are not just streaming here on Zoom. We are also live on YouTube as well. So please, if there's anyone that you know, please let them know that they can also watch today's session live on YouTube. So just kind of a brief recap on what we did. So in the last session, we covered identifying and building the right business idea. And in this session, we're going to be looking at identifying and building the right team. So just as a reiteration, so in case some of you may have missed the last session, we discussed about the purpose behind the webinar series, and I'm not going to go too deep into it now because you can always go out and watch the recording. But in essence, the reason why we are doing this is because we've had the dream that back in college, I had the dream that it seems like the supply of jobs is going to be far less than the demand because universities are producing thousands of graduates every year very soon. And from what I'm actually already hearing, it seems like the demand for jobs, the demand for university students who are coming out every year has actually overshot the supply of jobs in the market. And many employers are just looking for people who can come and solve their cogent problems. So they might be saying to you that, oh, you need X amount of experience and so on and so forth. So the purpose of this webinar series is really to inspire those who have business ideas to actually start creating the jobs for the future. So not just waiting to get a job, but to also start creating and putting into place some of the passions that they have and turning those passions into a business that would provide jobs for people in the future. And the reason why we brought this webinar series is that we just don't want you to imbibe information alone. Our hope is that you would take the information that we are sharing with you and you would actually use it to start your own business. So and part of the package of this webinar series is that for every willing participant who actually wants to start up a business, we would work alongside you to help you to generate the funds for your business. Of course, we cannot really promise anything, but we would work alongside you to develop fundraising strategies to use as a seed capital to start up your business. So that is the challenge that we are giving to all our listeners today. So last week we spoke about, like I said, we spoke about identifying and building the right business idea. Today we have our speaker here with us, and we're going to be talking about identifying and building the right team. So this is going to be a 6-week long webinar series, like already established. And the following week we're going to be having someone talking about identifying and reaching the right audience. On the 15th of June, the fourth week, we're going to be looking at knowing your numbers and also budget control. And I'll also be talking more about how we're going to be helping you to raise the seed capital. on the fifth week, we'll be looking at the compliance side and administration requirements for setting up your business. So Shayo is a very, very inspired person in that light, and he has helped many businesses in that light as well. And on the last week, we're going to be having a panelist session with very experienced entrepreneurs and growing entrepreneurs as well, who will come on board to share some of their experiences, and you'll be able to ask them as many questions as you want. But today's focus is going to be with our very able speaker. We nicknamely call him Shep, but he's also known as Yomi Odukoya. He's been a mentor to myself. And just to introduce him to you, the audience, Mr. Yomi Odukoya has been a very big mentor to myself. He has inspired a lot of youth, and some of the young people that he has helped to shape. Some of them have actually gone off to start off their own businesses, to start off their own organization, to even start up their own churches as well. So he's more or less like a leader of leaders. He's the CEO of Quality Precepts, and that's a leadership consulting company. He has led several leadership training seminars and conferences for senior leadership in large conglomerates, including the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation. If you don't know them, those are the guys that kind of control the oil in Nigeria. He led a training session for them. We're talking about senior management, so we're talking about the DGMs, the GMs, the GGMs, and so on and so forth. He's also an avid proponent for empowering the emerging leader. He has actually written a book in that light called Equip to Emerge. So at this point, I would like to turn it over to Mr. Yomi Odukoya to take on from here. I think you're still on mute.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining. It is a great privilege to be here. Thank you so much for this invite and for this opportunity to be on this platform. I think it's a brilliant thing that this idea is all about, getting entrepreneurs to come together and understand, what do I want to do? Do I really want to do this? Yes, I want to do this. How am I going to go about it? What do I need to know? How do I get empowered? How do I get encouraged to do this? How do I look at what's around me and not get discouraged by all the bad news around us? So, Mr. Oyewole, thank you so much. It's really a wonderful thing that you're doing. And to everyone who has joined, thank you so much for joining. I hope we can have a really good time. I'll just share my screen now, if I may, and I think that would, and we'll kick off straight away. And tonight we are talking, like we just heard from Mr. Oyewole, we're talking about identifying and building the right team. Teams are so important in the grand scheme of things. When you start talking about building a business, doing whatever you want to do, you've all heard the adage, no man is an island. It is always so true when you're setting up a business. You cannot be an island. Even if you're on your own, you will sell to somebody, you will buy from someone, you'll have suppliers, you'll have other people around you. And so building a team is a crucial part of setting up any kind of business, any kind of concern. And we're just going to go through certain things this evening. So bringing up the screen now, I hope you can see that.
It's coming up. Yep, we can.
Okay, good. So building the right team, the challenge that every entrepreneur has got. So what are we going to look at today? We are going to try in the next hour and a half or thereabouts to go through some foundational principles for building successful teams. How do you go about it? What's a successful team look? What does it look like? We're going to talk about briefly the value of effective leadership to team development. How important is the leader? How important is the entrepreneur to the team? And how important is the concept of leadership throughout the team? We're going to talk about a concept of internal and external teams. What do those two things mean? How do they make any sense to the entrepreneur? What are they? How do you interact with your internal team? How do you interact or influence your external team? We'll also talk about some challenges, systemic challenges that influence team performance. Because if there's anything, you do want your team to perform at this maximum capacity or ability. Now, it's something that we always get told, and we've heard this for quite a while. You know, the reason we're in business is to make money. That is true, but I would like to upgrade that. The reason we are in business is to solve problems. When you solve problems, money comes your way. If you don't solve problems, money doesn't come your way. And biggest thing you want to do is not chase after money, is chase after solutions and become a solution yourself. When you become a solution, money finds you. So we're going to look also at the conflicts and change, how conflict and change works in teams. And if we can, we'll ask that age-old question: what can go wrong? Some people say everything can go wrong, but we'll ask that question and we'll look at one or two things that could go wrong and how we might be able to get around any situations of that nature. So we're going to start in there, unless we have a lot to cover. What is a team? Simple question. I've come up with an answer here that a lot of people will agree with. It puts a lot of thoughts together, and that is, a team is a group of people who come together under shared leadership. Very important. All the underlying words and phrases are very important. Shared leadership, mutual responsibility, conscious authority to achieve agreed upon goals in a mutually effective fashion. Why do we say that? It's important that all of these underlying words are adhered to. This is as close as possible to Steve Sugar's definition of a team. And I think it works for most teams in many arenas. One of my favorite teams, you can see there's these beautiful looking guys in yellow and blue. So the first thing it says it's a group of people. And what then is a group? A group is a collection of individuals in regular contact for whatever reason. And that frequent contact, that interaction leads them to that shared understanding and potentially a shared destination. Not all groups are teams, I got to say that, but then all teams are groups. The team structure is technically an upgrade from a group. So when you start out, you might just be a group of people, group of friends can then form a team. Why is a team an upgrade in the sense of business? Because a team tends to have a more formal structure than a group. However informal the team is, and I know the penchant is for a lot of informality in teams today. Everyone is talking about the agile movement, but I can say from my experience that the agile movement, though informality is promoted, they are some of the most technically structured teams you can find. However, the team structure is important to the goals that the entrepreneur might have. So we had other things in that discussion, which says they come together. Now that's important. There will be something that pulls a team together. This might be just the idea that the entrepreneur has. It might be a shared vision because you're friends with someone, you've met the person, you know that you think alike. It might be the desire to solve a problem. It might be just the fact that everyone can see there's a gap and you're all going to plug the same gap in the market and you meet up somewhere along the way. It might be you were competitors before you decided to come together. There will be some kind of a force. It is important for you, the entrepreneur, and for the team as a whole to understand what that force is. If you don't know what made you, you will not be able to fall back on that strength when things get difficult. And even when things are going well, it is that same idea of what brought us together that you will hold on to, because we live in a moving world. The world goes so quickly. Everything moves at super speed. If you don't know where your earthen structure is, where you can hold back onto earth, you will struggle a little bit. So that coming together piece is important. As an entrepreneur, know in your heart, in your mind, and as a team member, you got to know what brought us together in the first place, because that will be a point where you go back to get some strength. It's the magnet that keeps you together, is what holds you together as a team. The other phrase was shared leadership. Now, with the entrepreneurial team, more than any other team type, shared leadership is important. In some leadership structures, you can have a singular person holding the whole structure of leadership. One leadership grew and a whole lot of minions. That could work for some leadership structures. In an entrepreneurial team, shared leadership is important. Every member of the team needs to know that they are a part of something big. They're not just being led by the nose somewhere. They're not just being dragged, kicking and screaming into someone else's vision. They are a part of the leadership group. The decisions that are being made in the interest of the whole team. The vision of the entrepreneur is something that the whole team has taken on board, and therefore the team is strong because they share that leadership structure. They share the idea that the entrepreneur has. Now, there's research that shows us over and over again that the strength of a team is directly linked or directly proportional to the acceptance of the shared leadership responsibility, especially in a fluid entrepreneur-style team. If there is not an acceptance of shared leadership, the team will struggle at some point. There might be early gains, but I promise you that team will struggle. So shared leadership is important. Mutual responsibility. Very like shared leadership. This is the understanding of our responsibility within the team. What am I doing in this team? Who am I? What is the joint responsibility that we have? What is my individual responsibility? Where do I end and where does Mr. Peter start? Where do I end and where does Miss Julie start? Where do we all come back together and celebrate in the success or commiserate with each other, when we have to drown our sorrows in a bowl of soup? But whatever the case might be, a mutual responsibility is important for a team. We have to be together. Now, there's something about conscious authority. Now, even in a team where you have a flat structure, there is something called authority. And that authority is what tells you, here's what you must do. It might be the leader of the team. It might be an assigned leader every week. It might be everyone comes together and casts lots. It might be that you vote on every decision. But there has got to be a way in defining, deploying, and delegating authority. Otherwise, you will have absolute anarchy in this team. Now, this authority is what really gives a team life. And it cannot just be some kind of happenstance. It can't be that authority just falls off the tree every morning. There has to be a consciousness about the authority. And I put a last sentence there, which I hope you do remember, that the consciousness of authority is also the legitimacy of authority. If you don't know who the leader is, if you don't know where the directive comes from, if you don't know where the vision comes from, then you do not have any authority in that team. And that team will break apart slowly but surely. Agreed goals and vision. I'm sure we all understand these. We know that this is absolutely important for any team, entrepreneurial or otherwise. It's the most basic expectation in a team. You have to be going in the same direction. If you have people with different or divergent views over certain issues, that's fine, that's great. That makes for some good, healthy conflict within the team. But in general, everyone has got to be pulling in the same direction. You know, all the cliches, singing from the same hymn sheet and all of that kind of stuff, but you have to be going in the same direction. The goals may not be your first choice, but there's something called collective responsibility. Once you have collective responsibility, even if you might not 100% believe in some of the goals or some of the ways we're doing stuff, we have that collective responsibility. You can either check out of the team, but as long as you're on board, you have to have that agreement on direction so that we can have the impact that we desire upon, on our world. That's really, really important. And I did end up with mutually effective, because the reason any team comes together, like I said earlier on, is to accomplish a set of goals, objectives, or targets, solve a problem, be a solution to the world. The reason we have all of these wonderful companies around us, your Amazons and your Microsofts and all of these beautiful companies, they were created to fill a gap, to solve a problem. There was something that wasn't quite working, or was working slower than it should have worked, or was kind of locked down in the past, and they came up with a better way of solving a problem. It might not be a totally new way of doing things, but you have to be together to do something. Now, how you meet these goals, the effective manner in which you deliver this thing is important to the team, because that's the story you tell. When your team gets better and better, when your team delivers absolute value, you tell the story, you stand on top of your car outside and you beat a drum about it. So it's important that you have a mutually effective way, a way that you all agree eventually that it's the effective way to do something, so you can have that mutual achievement of job done. You know, the whole high five, backslapping stuff. Everyone loves to be a part of that. No one loves the part where you drown your sorrows in a bowl of soup. But when you want to really get the team movement going, your mutual achievements and how you got there, what the path you took to get things really going well, are fantastic stories to tell. And that's why you need to have this as part of your team. Now, the power of teamwork. Now, teamwork is a buzzword, and so I hear, but it's now become more of an organizational or an operational reality. It's no more just a thing we throw about and go, oh, great teamwork. You know, everyone writes a CV and go, I'm fantastic. I'm a fantastic team builder, team worker. Those things are no longer buzzwords. They are now reality, because the difference between success and failure sometimes for a budding entrepreneur and even for seasoned business people could be how the team works or how well the team works. We have seen governments collapse because teams are not working well. We have seen large organizations collapse because teams are not working well. Many years ago, I worked for a company called Digital Equipment Corporation. It was one of America's biggest companies. I was so proud to be a deck man, you know, working for DEC. It was so great. I spoke about DEC until DEC did not work very well. And eventually what happened was DEC collapsed under the strain of how they were working. And what happened eventually was Compaq, another US company, Compaq bought DEC. And I was like, well, they work for Compaq now. Compaq didn't work after about 10, 12 years, and they were bought by Hewlett-Packard HP. So when you look at the HP logo, it contains a lot of companies that are falling by the wayside. They were great entrepreneurial businesses. They were fantastic organizations, but they failed because teamwork was lacking in some areas. Key things you need to have in place in your team: expertise and knowledge, important. Not just on the individual level, but cumulatively, what are we? What can we say our expertise is as a team? Can we put out a statement and say, we are the people who make cloud computing great. We are the people who take your on-prem to the cloud seamlessly and you won't know the difference. We are the people who determine how the financial system works. We are the people who make your trade deals better. Whatever it might be. What's your cumulative expertise? What's your selling point? Someone's going to talk about marketing eventually. What are the opportunities you have in the team for participatory learning? In other words, your team does not know everything. Nobody knows everything. And it's a great line where you can look at your team and say, we're going into the unknown world. We are stepping up to the plate. We're going to try and deal with the problem to do with X, Y, Z. And in there, we're going to learn some things together as a team. When we go in at this end, we're going to go in as the underdogs. And we're going to beat the what's it out of this problem. We're going to come out the other side having solved this problem. And when we do that, we would have learned along the way a lot more than we would have learned in a classroom. And at the end of the day, we can talk about that as part of our team structure. We learn together. We learn by participation. We learn by building. We learn the hard way, but we learn nevertheless. And in learning, we also deliver solutions. A team also has the power to provide checks and balances. So each person has got abilities. Each person has got a way they want to go. But for a team to work, every member of the team is a check or a balance to someone else in the team. You keep yourselves honest, you keep yourselves humble, you keep yourselves real, and you keep your eyes on the target. So that provision of check and balance is a great power of team working, and also the enhanced motivation of knowing that you're not going to sink alone. And if you're going to fly to the heights of heavens as well, you're not going to fly alone. There's going to be someone by your side. Have you ever seen, a company of birds flying? Now, my wife does something. She always looks into the skies around twilight, towards the evening, and she can always look at these birds flying in formation. I never noticed this before, but she told me, have you seen when birds are flying back to wherever they came from in the evening? Have you seen the formations? And I started looking and watching these birds as a level of intelligence, but also a level of teamwork involved. We talk about people and we say, oh, you're a bird brain because birds have got very small heads and therefore very small brains and they can't think much. But when you see birds doing stuff like that, you can then imagine what you and I can do when we've got brains way, way in advance of these birds. The power of teamwork, not to be sniffed at all. So let's get into this. Some principles for building successful entrepreneurial teams. What are these principles? Now, I've got to say, these principles are not exhaustive. I've got to speak for about 75, 80 minutes. I might take a break somewhere to take some questions. So I'm presenting a selection that I've put aside for this session. There are many more that we can get into at some other time and other opportunity. Number one, set out a clear vision and mission. What is it that we want to do? It has to be convincing. First of all, convincing to you. Because if you, the entrepreneur, the leader, the visionary, if you are not convinced, you cannot convince anybody else. It's important that you will buy your own product. You will buy you. You will have some of you. Because if you're not having any of you, who's going to have any of you? It's important. A convincing vision. This is something that is worthy and worth doing very well. It also has to be compelling. You know, the kind of thing you cannot take your eyes off it. You cannot take your eyes off an email. So you send an email to a friend of yours. Hey, James, you know, a long time no see. I haven't seen since uni days. I've got this great idea. I'm looking at doing this, that, and the other, and I've got a great platform to do it. I'd like you to come on board. I know you from way back when, and I know you can do this kind of thing. I want to invite you into the team. It's got to be compelling. It's got to be even beyond your friendship. It's got to be something that I did. Yeah, I hear you. I'll be there tomorrow. Where do you want me? Where do you want me? I'm going to be there. Even if it's not a friend, someone who does not know you. If you have to approach, for example, an investor and you want that investor to put some of their hard-earned money into your idea, what you have has got to be compelling. It's got to tell a story that no one will be able to say, I don't want to be a part of this. And even if they don't fully understand what you're talking about, let's say you're going on in ones and zeros, it's got to be compelling enough for them to want to understand the ones and zeros, to say, let's set up a meeting. I'd love to hear more about this. Your vision must also be exciting. If it's dull and boring and run-of-the-mill, and we've heard it all before, you're not going to get a lot of traction. You're not going to get a lot of interest. And I tell you what, even yourself, eventually, you will lose focus, you will lose energy, you will lose drive, because you've managed to bore your own back teeth out even before getting people on board. So you have to make sure that when you set that vision, it's exciting. Now, I do know that Mr. Oyewole, through his original company, TO Consult, he used to work on these sort of things, helping people to set up their business, get an exciting tagline, understand what the idea is all about. I believe the gentleman from last week as well, he spoke a lot about idea generation. There are people who can help out there, to help you set a proper vision and mission so that everyone who cares about it, can really get on board with you. It has to inspire people to action. Whatever it might be, people would want to jump on board with you. I'm not sure what it is, the likes of Bill Gates and Jeff Bezos told their mates and the people who came on board at that time. I mean, Jeff was a bookseller, he was selling books. Well, I'm going to have this online thing that's going to sell books. I'm not sure how you put it, but it inspired a lot of people. I'm not sure what the guys at Google say to people, but everyone would at the drop of a hat, run into the Google building I would, would run in there to go work. It's got to be something that's inspiring people to want to be a part of these things. Crucially as well, your vision and mission has got to be unambiguous. Don't write too many things. Don't tell a long story. Make it clear, concise, but unambiguous. There should not be too many ifs and buts and maybes in your vision. It's got to be very, very clear from the onset what you intend to do. Don't worry about the fact that you might fail. Actually, we were told last week, you will fail probably, and then you will rise up again. So but be very clear. Make sure it's also a gripping thing. So when people are inspired by it and excited by it, and they get into it, it holds them there. They don't want to get right back out, having found out what it's all about. But we have some people who have a very exciting vision, and people jump on board and jump right back off board. It doesn't grip them to continue working with them. Make it a gripping one. Because all of these things together drive passion, they drive collaboration, and they drive commitment to your idea. The second thing is you need to set out team organization goals. And I'm not going to go into this. So I've just written it up there, SMART. And everyone knows what that is all about. So we're not going to talk about SMART tonight, but that's just the beginning. It's not just enough to set SMART goals. It's a brilliant thing to do. And there are other systems as well, not just a SMART system, but this is the most popular one. Aside from setting SMART goals, try to understand what barriers are standing between your team and the goals you're setting. Now, I picked up this idea from Edward Demon's theory of constraints. His way of looking at things was looking at the potential problems and then setting strategies to deal with those problems. So instead of just looking at my goals and then walking off to say, I'm just going to break all the, just walk into the great future tomorrow, he would actually look at what constraints are out there. What could potentially stop us from getting where we're going? And he would then set up strategies. It's a good thing to do. Strategies for moving forward, once you understand what the barriers are, then have always within your goals plans to measure, plans to re-evaluate if you need to, plans to redirect if you need to redirect. No shame in redirection, no shame in re-evaluation, no shame in turning in another direction because you found out a lot more, but have a plan to do that. Don't be driven by the storm to redirect. Don't be driven by the storm to reevaluate. Get a plan in place even before you start. I might get this far and I might need to turn left or right. If I get there, what do I do? If, then, else, and then if again. And continue going that way. Have a plan to measure whatever you're doing. Also have plans to celebrate. Do you know that the best businesses in the world are also the best celebrators in the world? They celebrate every success like there's no tomorrow. Why not? If you have in your mind an upcoming celebration, you're energized for it. Now, today was my second son's birthday. It was his brother's birthday just yesterday. So you can imagine this whole week has been a birthday week. We did a birthday shopping before the birthdays came around. We were energized for celebration. When you set up your team, get ready to celebrate success. Otherwise, why start in the first place? I know someone will say, well, what if my team is West Ham United, or what if my team is Norwich City? What am I going to celebrate at the end of the season? I'll leave that. But in any case, still get ready to celebrate. You might at least win one game. Whatever it might be, get ready to celebrate. Have short-term, mid-term, long-term goals. Don't do yourself down. Make sure you have every kind of goal. People say, well, but I'm an entrepreneur. The whole idea I heard that entrepreneurs played on a wing and a prayer. It looks like that. It might look from the outside that entrepreneurs are people who don't have plans or who just wing it as they go along. I tell you one thing, they always have plans. What they also do have, by the way, is that ability to flex, to do things on the fly. They're able to do things, with serious agility, but it does not mean that they don't have plans. As much as possible, make sure there's a plan for whatever it is you want to do. Have plans that are, you have different kinds of goals. Have a goal that takes you towards something. I want to get somewhere. Have a goal that helps you to maintain stuff. We want to keep our level up, so and so. That's also a goal. We want to have goals to take us away from certain things. We want to go away from manual computing to fully automated computing on the cloud. That's an away from goal. And the team that you build must know what these goals are. Finally, have full transparency. No hidden goals, no hidden agenda. Yes, you might be the boss. Yes, you might be the visionary. Make sure there's enough trust that everyone's aware of what you're doing. After all, people are throwing their lots in with you. They're buying your vision. They're buying into your ideas. You're leading them to see what you have seen that they may not have seen. Then why would you hide the goals and the targets from them? Make sure that it's clear to them what you're looking to do, and they can always be on board with you, whatever it is you're doing. Number 3, communicate expectations. What do you expect of the members of your team? If you invited me onto your team, what do you expect? When Mr. Oyewole invited me, he called me and said, oh, Shep, we'd like you to do this, that, and the other. And I went, so what am I expected to do? So he told me what my role would be as an individual. He also let me know that I'm part of a team of collaborators on this group. And he told me who they were. So I now know what my role is. My role included preparing these slides, getting ready for today, doing what I'm doing right now, and also giving advice along the way as I could do. So I knew what my role was, and I still know what that is. Let your team know individually what they are supposed to do. But aside from the roles you give them, within those roles, there's a little thing called a responsibility. And there could be many of them within one role. Let them know what their individual responsibilities are and also what the collective responsibility of the team is. As a team, we are responsible for this great and mighty idea, and we are so proud of this responsibility. But within that, it's my job to open the door. It's my job to log into this computer and leave it there for the computer programmer to do something. It's my job to make the tea. And I do make a really, really serious cup of tea. Without my cups of teas, my goodness me, this team is not moving. Tell you a story. When I was writing that book, Equipped to Emerge, one of the things I really enjoyed was my daughter's cups of tea. And my daughter, she's 20 now, and she would come in and say, hey, Dad, how are you doing? Do you want some tea? She just asked anyway, even though I just had a cup of tea, and I'd always say yes. Even if there was half a cup of tea, I would just say yes, because those cups of tea were important. It was part of that team responsibility in building that book. Also let them know what are the minimum standards that this team would allow. Don't take on a person into the team that does not understand what the minimum standards are, because what would then happen is if they come in with a different expectation of standards and they are running at this standard being their maximum standard, but this here is your minimum standard, you've got to disconnect within the team. You're going to be struggling to pull this person up to this level. And what is more likely to happen is that in trying to pull, you might find yourself dropping a little bit. You might get to this point, but this was not your minimum and is far in excess of your team members' maximum. And that is a disaster. This is what we call no man's land in the land of expectations. So make sure you understand and the team understands what the minimum standards are for this team. Also set boundaries to proactively mitigate conflict. Where there are no boundaries, people step on each other's toes, the team gets into internal conflict. So don't get me wrong, conflict can be good. It's not always negative. But when conflict becomes a problem within the team and the team starts to implode within itself, then you've got yourself a mighty whopping problem. So set boundaries, let everyone know where they fit in within the team. Very important, absolutely crucial. What are the expected results? Now that goes beyond responsibilities, it goes beyond the standards, it goes beyond the boundaries. What is it that I have got to produce? And if I produce this thing to the exact recommendation, to the exact standard, then I'm doing my job. If I produce above that, then I'm going over and beyond. I deserve a raise, I deserve a celebration, I deserve additional share options, but I need to know, and every team member needs to know, what the expected results of the team are, both individual and collective. And then let them know if there's any leeway or range of possibilities to bring in additional ideas. So for example, well, this is where we are, but we could think out there and we could do some other things, because your team members might be able to add to what you've got. They might be able to come up with something else that will be really helpful with what you're doing. So let them know what range of possibilities exist for them to add to the vision if need be. And number 4, build a team with relevant strengths. What does that mean? You need to know as the entrepreneur, as a visionary, what strength the team needs for the mission. I need somebody who can write Perl scripts and JavaScript from now till kingdom come. I need somebody who is an expert in financial or in trading, in equities trading. I need an absolute expert or someone front to back trading technology who knows exactly what they're doing. It's a musician's team, it's a music group. I need a guitarist. I need a guitarist at so and so level. I need someone who can play the drums to level 8, whatever the case may be. You need to know what strength the team needs for the mission. Oh, I'm running the England cricket team. I need a captain who can call the shots in the middle. I don't want a captain who's going to be looking to the sidelines. I want an absolute barnstorming leader in the center of the park. Whatever it is, you need to know what strengths the team needs for the mission. Also, try to avoid conflicting strengths. So in building a team together, what you don't want is a situation where you have 2 people who have the same strength but different ideas of that strength. So they now come into conflict. And what you have is an argument to sort out every single day. Avoid conflicting strengths, Having said that, encourage challenging viewpoints. I'm not saying you want a team of yes men, or you do not want a team where everyone's a rabble-rouser and everyone is is just looking to get one over the other person, because you're now looking at a team that is going to malfunction very quickly. Encourage challenging viewpoints. As I said, I used to be part of the team at Morgan Stanley many, many years ago. I had a good friend, Philip Thomas. He was part of that team. He reported into me, but Philip was the archetypal man with the additional idea, or the man who had a totally different idea. But his challenging viewpoints were crucial to the team. They helped the team grow. He would come and say, well, why are we doing things this way? And he would challenge, but with every challenge he brought up, he came up with another idea. Can we get it better? I enjoyed those sessions with Philip. What I would do before a team meeting, before we go into a meeting of 10, 12 people, I'd call Philip into a room and we'd have a barnstorming session, a proper session of if buts, and all of the. And when we come out of that room together, the two of us, we understood where we were going with the team. So it's important, as an entrepreneur, encourage challenging viewpoints, make sure that there's strength and there's progress in those challenges as well. Not challenging for the sake of challenging, but challenging to provide additional value. Make sure you stock up on complementary strengths. If someone's got strength A, and strength number 2 is able to prop up that person when that person is flailing, then look for people like that. So you've got someone who's got so many ideas, he can think of so many things, but cannot write a single page of text to save his life. Get someone who's an expert in documentation. So as Mr. A is thinking, Mr. B is literally writing all of these things down and putting presentations together. Everything counts. Every strength in the team must complement something, must do something to help the other one get better. A team is a collection of people. Don't forget, a collection of strengths, a collection of abilities. When put together, they interlock very well, and you have something that's moving like a single body. It can be really great when you have a team that's moving as a single body. So stock up on complementary strengths, definitely. Also, avoid the overloading of some strengths at the expense of others. That's very important. Do not overload the team with some strengths where you have weaknesses in some other areas. Make sure that your team is well balanced in everything that you do. Empower each team member. Every team member must be empowered to do what it is you expect them to do. A team member must know that this is my relevance. I am relevant because I bring this part to the party. If they don't feel relevant, if they don't feel that there's something in them that makes the team what it is, they will very slowly move to the periphery of the team, and eventually they will start to be a drag on the resources of the team because they don't feel they are relevant to the team. They're doing stuff day in, day out, they're coming to meetings, but they don't have that strong feeling of relevance in that team. The last one, avoid cloning yourself. There is very, very good research out there that says most leaders look to clone themselves because they are afraid of anybody else. So they always want to have people in the team who look like them. And that is seriously, it's a problem. It's a problem because when you clone yourself in a team, everyone thinks like you. You simply have everyone going in one direction. Yes, that looks good, but there's no challenge. There's no opportunity to share ideas, to rub minds together. It's a very boring team, and it's a weak team where everybody thinks like the boss. Everybody says, yes, sir, no, sir, 3 bags full, sir, how high should I do? The boss says, jump. That's not an entrepreneurial team. That's a team of minions. Yeah, Gru and his minions, that's not going to work for you. In this fast-moving, ever-changing world, you need a team that's flexible, a team that has got complementary strengths, not a team that just says, yes, sir, because the boss spoke. Number 5, encourage innovation and creativity. You are the visionary. Yes. You are the entrepreneur. Yes. It was your idea. Yes. But you are not the only creator. You're not the only one who can have ideas. You're not the only one. You don't have the say-so on innovation. You don't have the sign over creativity. The reason you got all of these guys together is to improve and help deliver this great thing you saw. You imagined it. You went into the future and you saw this great idea. You saw that there's just nothing like it in today's world. And you came back into the present and you decided to get a group of people together. You need to trust them to help you with that, with the revealing, if you like, unveiling of that idea, with the manifestation, the implementation of that idea. Some of that implementation will involve even them going into their hatches and coming up with different ideas. You've got to encourage that. Questioning the status quo should be normal. And I know that sounds like a proper oxymoron there. Questioning status quo, normal, but yes, if you get what I mean, the normal for your team has got to be that you're questioning the status quo. That's what makes your team an entrepreneurial team. So you have to make sure that that's part of your culture. Encourage effective brainstorming. In as much as it's great that people can go into a corner or batten down the hatch in a little corner and come up with a great idea, it always works better when there's something to bounce the idea on. So let them bounce ideas together. If you like, get yourself an independent facilitator. You've got, lots of people are very good at that. I think I just saw Mr. Kutubo join. He's a real proper facilitator. Get people who can facilitate independently. Help you brainstorm. Get those ideas together. Get those juices flowing, the creative juices flowing. Encourage brainstorming. Encourage that kind of environment that is non-judgmental. Anyone can say stuff. Anyone can do stuff. And whatever they say, there is no stupid idea. In the world of the entrepreneurial team, every idea is a valid idea until it's not a valid idea. So you take it on board, it goes onto the board, it goes onto your Kanban board, or it goes onto your list or onto your list of items to do until it doesn't get done. But it's still there. Even when it's discarded, it's there as an idea that we considered, but we're not just doing it right now. It does not fit with today, it might fit with tomorrow. It's not a rejected, stupid, silly idea. It's just one you're not doing now. Never judge in an entrepreneurial team. Make feedback and feed forward a regular process. Let there always be feedback. How did we do? There needs to be feed forward. How are we going to do when we're going somewhere? The feed forward is a beautiful thing to do. You're going into a meeting, you're going into a client meeting. You know what? You actually feed forward into that. What are we going to meet? How are we going to do with things? And then when you do that, when you're done with your work, you then have a feedback session as well. Let information flow throughout the team, and let it be information that is moving you forward, not just information that is maintaining you where you are. Let it be innovative, creative information. Coach your team. One of the biggest responsibilities of the entrepreneur is that responsibility of coach. It's not the one of boss, it's not the one of management, it's not the one of even leadership. Coaching your team is perhaps your biggest responsibility, because you're responsible for keeping all of these moving parts together. They need to keep seeing how you're going. And I think it's important that you are a very, very good coach. That is really important, because a good coach, a good coach is a person who will make the team way, way better than it can ever think to be. So coach your team to act on their beliefs. Also coach your team for the challenge of change. Coach your team as well to have a can-do attitude. That's really, really important. And finally, in this one, just take away the box. People talk about thinking inside the box, outside the box, near the box. Why do you need a box? Just get rid of the box, break the box, burn it, and then start to think. Let the whole place flow with creativity. In a minute, I'm going to stop. I think I've got two more to go on here, number 6 and 7. When I get to the 7th slide here, I'm going to stop and take some questions. I think it will be helpful to just have some questions on what we said so far. So number 6, build a culture of integrity. A culture that honors promises. If you say something, please get it done, or do everything you can to get it done. Never overpromise or underpromise. People talk about overpromising being a crime, and they tell you, well, it's better to underpromise and over-provide or over-implement. That's equally as disingenuous as overpromising in the first place. It's not important to massage what the results look like. Promise what you believe you can deliver. If you don't get to deliver it, at the very least, let people know that you promised it because you believed you could, you had the ability to. There might have been 1 or 2 things that went wrong, but then own up to what went wrong as well. For me, integrity is fairly simple. say what you mean what you say, and demonstrate your commitment to delivery. And this is something you have to coach throughout the team. You don't want a member of your team going off, on some kind of rogue idea to call up the client and say, not to worry, we can add that little feature to the website as well. Oh yeah, we can do that. I'll speak to the boss. I'll speak to Tolu. He'll sort it out. And there's got to be a collective integrity within the team. Build trust within the team. Make sure that not just within the team also, but between the team and the outside world. You should trust one another in that team. That's one of the things that's important for a team to get together, to stay together, but also build trust between the team and the outside world. And finally on this one here, the last one I've got here is own your issues and misadventures. If something goes wrong, own it. Don't run away from the responsibility. There's no point, trying to hire some PR guru to paper over the cracks or to make it look like you did not make a mistake. You made a mistake, it was an error. Yeah, don't say, you went off 260 miles away and that was the best you could do. Just, oh no, it was a mistake. I should not have done that. Build a culture of integrity within your team. Don't pass the buck. Let the buck stop where you are. And the final one I've got here, run an inclusive, that's a typo there, run an inclusive ship. Include the team in important calls where possible. Make sure that there's group ownership of everything. Don't own certain things. Don't create little groups and cliques and silos, because if you do that, you are working against yourself. Eventually, the team will break up into small units, and then that is just not good. There will be a bad vibe in the team. Important, have these little meetings between the whole group, agile stand-up type meetings where you can get together in the morning. Hey guys, how are you doing? What are you doing on the left-hand side? What are you doing on the right-hand side? Come on guys, let's go. Whatever you need to do, a bit of the rah, 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 whatever works for your team, get that done. But do not create unnecessary silos, management layers, the need to know group and the not need to know group. If you do that, you are causing the team some damage from the inside. Be clear about information security protocols. And finally, I talked about celebration before. Celebrate the team, but don't forget to celebrate the individual. Right. We're going to stop here for now. Any questions? We've talked so far about what a team is. We've talked about these 7 different strategies for building a proper entrepreneurial team, one that does work, one that will deliver value. Are there any questions at this time?
Okay, so I'd like to encourage everybody to please ask questions as much as you can. We're going to be giving you the option to speak. So if you can raise your hand, and then I would allow you to speak. So if you have any questions, please kindly use your hand option, and I'll allow you to speak. If you can't find it, just send me a message in the chat, and then I would allow you to speak. So any questions? Okay, so whilst we wait for questions from the audience, I have 1 or 2 questions for you, sir. One of the things that I like the way you have broadened it up to a team, not just people that you are working with to in terms of people that you are managing per se, but a team in terms of your wider stakeholders. So you mentioned investors as well, but even looking at it from a team that you manage, how can an entrepreneur, because one of the things I've seen about people who have established businesses is that sometimes they have a kind of a trust phobia, because they feel like, oh, this is my baby, I need to protect my baby, I need to make sure that this business is successful. How can an entrepreneur create, how can they create a culture of trust? And number 2, how can they create a culture of you can make mistakes but learn from your mistakes, kind of a thing, so that the people are not afraid to step on the toe of the big boss, and so on and so forth. What advice would you give them?
Okay, I'll take those two one after the other. How do you build trust in a team? the best way to build trust in a team, in my experience, is to be very open. Run an open ship. Let people see you for who you are. Make sure you share the vision clearly. We talked about that. If they know where you're going and they also know your own insecurities, because sometimes entrepreneurs try to think, or some of them think that, well, I have to be Superman, you know, and if I'm not a man of steel, then I'm not going to make it. You know, there's this myth out there that the entrepreneur is this guy with a cloak. He can run through walls. He can do anything. He's the guy who can carry the whole world on his head. But that's not the case. Most of these people, well, everyone I know anyway, are human. You know, they were all babies. Some of them are husbands, some of them are daddies, some of them are, you know, friends, brothers. Some of them have got illnesses. Some of them have got what every normal human being has got. An entrepreneur is not a super person. So the first thing about building trust, let people see the real you. If all they see is a veneer and some kind of showcase that you've created, well, they will interact through that veneer, and that's all they will see. And what you will create is that, you know, I'm pretending and you're pretending at me, so we're pretending at each other, and there's no trust. So the trust will stop at the point of what you want them to know. There's nothing wrong at that level, an entrepreneurial team of people knowing who you are. They know your strengths, they know your weaknesses, you know each other's strengths and weaknesses because you're there to build together. One of the reasons you got these guys together is because there's something you can't do yourself. And because you can't do it, it counts as an area of development. If you don't like the word weakness, it counts as an area of development for you. And that's an area where that person might be strong. In every team, it works that way. Even in a marriage is a fantastic example of an entrepreneurial team. It's a team that's always ongoing, doing things, creating new life, getting that life to grow. You cannot get more entrepreneurial than that. And you find that a husband and a wife together, they complement one another. So build trust by being open. See each other for who you are. Don't be afraid to fail. Don't be afraid to say, you know what? I don't know the first thing about this, but I know you do. I'm the boss. It's my idea. You've only got 5% share options. I've got the rest, but I need you to do this. Or I can't speak in public. Why don't you be my PRO? Speak up. That way you get to trust each other. Once you know each other's ins and outs, I'm not saying tell them about, oh yeah, you know, 40 years ago my mother had cancer. No. That's kind of very personal. But there's stuff about you in a business sense, open up. That's how you build trust. How do you make sure you enable people to be strong in your team? Speak up when they're doing things right. And when you do things right, speak up. But by the same token, when you get things wrong, say, you know what, I think we booped there. We did this wrong. We can get better. We can get better here and there. So everyone can see that you're happy. You're okay saying, you know what, Yomi, that was bad. Epic fail, mate. Epic fail on me. You know, but I'm going to do better. I'm going to do better. Guys, I hold my hand up. It's a bit like you're the team captain. It's a penalty, World Cup final. You step up, bang, over the bar. What do? You got to own up. You're not going to, there's no retake. You know, and that's what it's like. And you see that, you just hold your hand up. You know, I'm messed up. But hey, we've got 5 minutes to go. Let's go, boys. That's how it works. So when they see that you are able to take criticism and you are able to know when you've done wrong, they're not going to be too afraid of stepping on your toes. They can say to you, boss, that was not quite so good. Does that work for you, sir?
That makes a lot of sense. So, so the key thing is be transparent, be ready to take feedback from your own team also. And so we've got 2 questions here. So a question from Alexander and a question from Daniel. We're going to start with Alexander. So Alexander, I'm going to ask you to unmute yourself. So if you can unmute yourself. I know you've typed out your question, but I'd like you to actually say it, you know, so that the audience can actually hear it clearly coming from you. So Alexander, please go ahead and unmute yourself. Are you there, Alexander? Okay, so whilst we wait for Alexander, Daniel, go ahead and unmute yourself and ask your question.
Hello, Uncle Shepherd.
Hello, sir.
Yeah, hope you're well. So my question was basically, because obviously I run my own football team, so basically it's a mixture of obviously myself and I'll say the leadership the players that have those leadership qualities and actually are the leaders of the team. So obviously, because they know they're young men, and they have other responsibilities alongside obviously playing for me. But how do you give them roles for them to actually do without making it sound or seem like it's like homework for them?
Right. So in giving people roles, thanks for that question. In giving people roles in a situation like that, the first thing you look at is there is a joint responsibility. Everyone's here to play football. Everyone's here to win games. Now, you've identified certain people as, leaders, and you don't want to create gaps and, cliques, or, the leadership group over there eating on one table and, having a go at these younger boys or whatever it is. What you then want to do, you enable them, say to them, look, leadership, and you have to, you're the coach, you're the manager, you're the owner of the team, you coach them and say, look, leadership is actually responsibility. It's not an opportunity to be the overlord. What it is actually saying, you go out there and carry the team. So being a leader does not mean you just get to lord it over people and tell people how to do stuff. So you get to say to them, guys, you're being allowed or selected to do these things because you've shown me something. I see something in you. Now, I see it in other people as well. But I want to give you that opportunity because I know this is going to make you better. And I know that when you have this additional responsibility, the team is depending on you, relying on you for that additional focus on the, once they cross that white line into the field, they're looking to you to drive them forward. You have this way of play with your heart on your sleeve. I want you to do more of that. Some of them might be talkers, some of them might not be talkers. Say, I just want you to do more of that. But what you really want to do is give them roles that helps them expose their own ability, expose their own character. Don't give a role to someone that puts him out of his comfort zone by a major distance. And I'll tell you why. Because if you do that, then you take away from his natural self, and then he starts trying to be what you're asking him to be. But if you know someone is a good talker, and he's probably even the youngest in the team, but he can talk, he can organize a defense, give him the role of organizing at corners. Give him the role of organizing defensive set plays, for example. He might not be the best defender. He might not be the oldest guy in the team, but he's that kind of guy who can talk. Maybe you might have another guy who's more quiet, more studious, but he's got this determination about him. When he gets on the ball, there's a way he runs. There's a way he drives people with him. He doesn't say a word. Give that kind of person responsibility for, encouragement and for keeping the team going. The different things you want to do. That's why teams have more than one captain. They have a captain who wears the armband. They have 2, 3, 4 other guys who are part of the captain's group. Those guys are able to help the main captain do everything. And so your leadership team works as a group, and they don't work to lord it over the other guys. They work within who they are. And that's what makes them able to take on those roles without trying to do too much or trying to become a bit of a tyrant or just getting the whole idea wrong. Let the responsibility and the role you give them be something that exposes their own strength. That's why they're there, aside from playing football. Does that help?
Yeah, no, it helps perfectly. Thank you so much.
That's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so I think Alexander has issues muting it with his microphone, so I'm just going to go ahead and read it out. I think he has 2 questions. So first of all, he says that this is very, very inspiring. So he's facing some challenges with making his team work together. It has been extremely difficult to find a balance. He's working with a lot of arrogant people within his team, and they're quite difficult to work with. And it's kind of creating some form of psychological discomfort within the team. So what strategies can he put in place to bring some form of easing and to address this imbalance that he's seeing within the team? How does he deal with difficult team members that are making other team members feel bad?
Yes. Now, everyone in the team, thank you so much, Alexander, for that question. Everyone in the team is an individual. They were brought in for different reasons. And therefore, in as much as the team is going to work as a unit, there are times in the life of a team where you have to still treat everyone as an individual. Remember I said earlier on, celebrate the team, but don't forget to celebrate the individual. The arrogance they show, the attitudes they show are rooted in something. They're not being arrogant because they want to be arrogant or because they just want to make your life a misery. Find out what's the root cause of this behavior. I'm pretty sure that if they showed arrogance at the start, at the very beginning, the man would have been part of the team. But find out, why is this behavior coming out this way? And that means a lot of one-to-one meetings are going on. In addition to the group meetings, you're meeting with people. If you see something is not quite right, pull someone to one side. Never be afraid to address that. If you're the team leader, never be afraid to address that. If you're not the team leader, work within the team structure, the organized structure, to get someone to speak to that person, to find out what the root cause of the aggro is. What's the root cause of this arrogance? Because that's causing an imbalance. Some people are saying he's being arrogant, or he's not pulling his weight, or he's just being really nasty to us, and the team is getting to, it's fracturing. There's a line, a fault coming in between the team. Find out what the root cause of these things are. If you cannot get to any root cause, and you think it's just a personality clash, for example, there's just no business reason, there's no operational reason, there's no process reason for this split in the team, or you see that it's a personality problem, then you have to work on one of two things. You either try to get both of them into a conflict management situation where you speak to them individually and then together, and try to get them to move forward from where they are. And if that is not possible, if it becomes absolutely impossible for both of them to exist in the same team and for that team to move forward, then you have to be prepared to lose one of them, maybe even both. A team is bigger than its constituents. You cannot have one person in the team upsetting the whole apple cart. It's very, very costly. There are some teams out there where one person is worth tens and tens of thousands of pounds every hour. So every time an arrogant person is bringing that person's productivity down, the whole team is affected. If you cannot find a good root cause, and if you cannot find a way to get the conflict managed effectively, then the team would have to lose one of those people. We see it happening all the time. You see it in government. You have a particular minister, he does not agree with the prime minister or the president, he's out. It's not because the president likes sacking people, it's because the team's not working with this person in there. And that one person is not more important than the whole of the community. Does that help, sir?
Yes, I think so. So yeah, I said yes, that was very, very helpful. And I think the last question, and after that, I think we can move on with the presentation as well, and then we'll leave the remaining questions for the end. He said, so, I mean, the bottom line is that the buck stops with the entrepreneur, the owner of the business, or the CEO, for example. And at the end of the day, you're the one that has to pay the bills. How then do you balance that idea that the whole buck stop with you and that shared ownership? I'm guessing that's what Alexander is trying to come across here. So how do you strike that balance?
You strike the balance simply by doing this. Yes, the buck stops with you. You have most of the shares. You are the one who will be pursued by the Charities Commission or by HMRC or by EFCC or whichever group is looking to audit you if anything goes wrong. But then you have shared responsibility. You balance it by, I talk about conscious authority. In this event, the conscious authority includes you as the leader. But the shared responsibility is helping you to deliver. Don't forget that even though you are the one who has to take the final hit and also the final glory, you cannot deliver without the whole structure. So that shared responsibility is vital to ensuring that EFCC do not knock on your door. So in order to avoid that, the buck of failure coming to your door, the shared leadership must work. So you have to invest a lot in that shared leadership, that shared ownership. Even though they own 5, 1, 1, and 3%, and you own the rest, you need to get everyone engaged in it, and so that you can produce the best and keep the darkness away. Keep all of the auditors feeling happy when whoever they are, the SEC, whenever they come your way, they're happy with you. And the only buck that stops at your door is the buck, it's the green type, if you're US dollars. or the good one, or the golden colored one. If that buck is stopping at your door, for goodness sake, you're loving the shared ownership. It's when the bad buck stops at your door that you think it's a problem. So by all means, yes, you own the responsibility overall, but share it so that the bad buck does not stop with you. That way the good buck always stops at your door. Is that okay?
I think that was very, very clear, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. Okay. So we've had a break. We've taken some questions, and I think it helps me to not just drone on for 80 minutes. So we're going to take on, we don't have that many more slides. There's going to be enough time for questions at the end. So we're going to go into something that's important. Just a couple of slides on this one. It's about communication in entrepreneurial teams. I've said a lot about making your goals clear, having a very clear mission and vision statement, letting people understand your weakness and your strength. It all comes down to communication. And communication in teams like this is super, super, super important. I've got some tips here that are present as questions, but when you answer these questions, you have a very good communication style for your team. The first question is, what is it that needs to be communicated? And all of these questions here, when you answer them, like I said, you are able to coach your team on how we communicate. There's a way we speak here. There's a way we communicate. Let me give you a good example of how communication works and how strong it can be. Way back then when Barack Obama was trying to be, was candidate Obama, there was candidate John McCain as well. Now, candidate John McCain, he had, this great war record. He'd been a senator for like 20 years. He had been in every arm of government. He had done so many things. He had been a prisoner of war. He had put his life on the line for the United States of America. And there was this guy, who had been 4 years as a senator going up against him. What really made the difference between these two teams was the way the Obama team communicated versus the way the McCain team communicated. I don't think either was a better or a worse man. I just think one communicated his vision much better. The yes we can thing, it just caught the whole place by storm. Before we knew it, McCain was way behind. But to get to that kind of level of communication where your whole organization, whether it be a campaign organization or a marketing organization, or you're the coach of a football team, or you're the prime minister, you're trying to explain a lockdown, stay alert or stay at home, whatever it is, you've got to first of all find out, what is it that we need to say? The second thing is, who needs to convey this information? Is it Dominic Raab or the Prime Minister? Is it the head of the government? Is it the head of the company? Who needs to say what? Because that's important. People attach certain levels of authority and acceptance to who's speaking. It's the same message, but depending on who said what, your message could be stronger or weaker. Determine, is this for the CFO? Is this for the CEO? Who should say this thing? Next question. Who needs or requires the information? If you give information that I don't need to me, you're not communicating with me. You're frustrating me. By the same token, if you don't give me communication or information that I need, you're similarly frustrating me and you're not very relevant to me. So as an entrepreneur, you must give the right information to the right people at the right time. You need to understand who needs to know, who requires it, and who does not need to know. Have different groups of people that you speak to at different times, even if you have to say the same message 5 times. Sometimes it's the same message minus 1 paragraph that they over there don't need to have. Be very clear about who needs or who requires the information. By the same token, who should not, I've said already, who should not receive the information. Timeliness. How soon is this information required? There's no point telling someone that they've got terminal cancer when they're already dead. There's no point telling somebody that, oh, you know what, you got the job after the people have been waiting for them and the job has been cancelled and has been given to someone else. How soon is this information required? When are people expected or required to know? Is there a regulatory requirement for certain information. You know, at Deutsche Bank, we do a lot of work on, you know, on what we call the 14A, the 14Q. These are quarterly and annual reports that are provided to regulators. They are due on the 30th day of something or the 31st of something without fail. One day late and there's a big fine. How soon is this information required? Also, the age-old question, why is this information required? Because that why tells you what you need to do, how to do it, and all the rest of the things. Why is that information required? Few more questions to go. When you answer all of these questions, like I said, you've got the communication strategy that you want for your team. Don't forget, people are waiting to hear from you. It's not just what you do, but what you say about what you do, what you say about the things you don't do. Take, for example, just this morning, I saw a message from the PayPal CEO, Schulman, and he said something about, you know, the whole issue that's going on in Minneapolis. And he said, we stand with the family of the man who's just been killed. And we stand, and we're not going to accept this kind of racism. Now, they felt it was something that needed to be said, and they decided it had to be the CEO. They decided how soon they had to say it, and they put that information out there. And the comments that came back on LinkedIn were fantastic. Oh, yeah, time information. Thank you, sir. Yeah, we like your company. His company is already making the right moves. How soon can the information be delivered? What's the best medium? You want to do that via Zoom here? You want to talk to people, you know, via Instagram? You want to have a group somewhere? How are you going to deliver this information? Also, which media should we avoid using? If there's a medium that you should not be using, then don't use it. Don't let the wrong information find its way into places where it should not be found. A couple more questions. Which words should be used or disallowed? Your communication can actually stand or fail, completely fall flat on its face because the wrong word was used. We live in a world of, you know, where things are different today. You could say one thing out of turn, and you might not even mean to say it, but it's not an excuse. You're a business person, you're an entrepreneur, you're a public figure. You are someone that the world expects better of. Be very, very careful. Your whole team has to be very careful how they communicate. Your best idea could tank because of something somebody said in a video in a pub while he was having a beer. That could totally derail the work you're doing. So be very, very careful and make sure your team is very careful about how they communicate. Will you ever know that the right message has been delivered? How would you know that? Make sure there's always feedback. Make sure there are always checkpoints when you communicate. Don't just let something go without checking for feedback. No, make sure you confirm the right people received the information was concise, it was complete, it had the right content, it had the right context. And therefore, the right kind of reaction was brought out of that communication. That's about communication. I said I'd be brief on that one because I think, you know, but you have those questions and we can go through them. You can ask any question on those when we're done. Internal and external teams. We talked about this. We mentioned this earlier, and Mr. Iwale also mentioned that. What's the internal team? What is the external team? Your internal team is a team we've been talking about all evening long. The one that you have recruited, the one that does different things within the organization, the one that has all the different kind of ideas, the one that has all the strengths that are complementary, one against one for the other, the one that works with you for the delivery of your goal, of your vision, of your mission. The typical roles in there are the CEO, presumably yourself. Sometimes it's not even the visionary. Sometimes the visionary hires a CEO in and takes up a different role, maybe of the chief technical officer or something like that. But there's someone who's a CEO who is strong in strategy, in dealing with clients, in going out there to make sure that this whole organization sticks together. Sometimes it's a big guy, sometimes it's not the big guy. It doesn't matter who it is. It's someone with that ability to do this kind of work. Then you have what you call your COO, your chief operations officer, someone who knows the detail, someone who you can send into a problem situation for conflict management, someone who can explain the ones and the zeros and who can really do all of that kind of stuff very well. someone who knows all of the rules and the regulations, knows the regulatory bodies, can speak regulatory speak, can speak accounting speak, different kinds of words, because they know the detail. They might not be an expert in one particular thing, but they know how the system works. They know how the outside world is working. They know how the inside world works, and they advise at a very high level in every area of the organization. Another typical role, of course, is your chief financial officer. And I'll tell you something, when you're starting out your business, don't start out by saying, oh, this person is the treasurer or the money keeper or the piggy bank. What's the piggy bank? Give them the right title. That's my chief financial officer, and that's my chief operations officer. Even if you don't have a single operation yet, and you only have 2 brown pennies to rub together, that person is still your chief financial officer. All things pounds, shillings, and dollars, and pence and cents to do. All members of your internal team. Your publicity officer, your head of publicity, your chief of media, your media operations bureau chief, whatever you like. Someone who is good with the whole world of the outside. Someone who sells the company and makes sure that people are doing the right thing. Someone who has the image of the company as the first port of call. Your chief publicity officer. Also, your marketing and sales kind of officer. Who is that person? Who is your selling person? It's different from the media person. Another member, a very important member of your internal team. Your human resources officer, your chief of personnel, or whatever you want to call this person, the person who deals with the people side of things, the culture side of things, the one who you entrust the building and the resourcing of your team to. These are key members of your team. Your chief risk officer, the one who's watching your back, or helping the CFO to count and understand the risk, understand who's going up against you, who the competition is, and what happened over the last 4 or 5 years. Why should we not go in this direction? Yes, the money bags lady said, oh yeah, we've got $2 million to spend on this, and the ops and detail chief said, I know of a great idea. The strategy guy said, yeah, why not? It's a bright new future. But the risk officer says, why do we want to do this? If you've ever watched the 100-Acre Wood, Winnie the Pooh, there's a funny character called Eeyore, the donkey. His question is always, why are we doing this? How are you sure it's not going to fail? It sounds like a voice of doom. But the chief risk officer is just the one person who is so alive to risk. This is the kind of person you need. So you need people with these kind of skills and more. But remember, at the very beginning, you were all of these people. Remember the poem? One man went to mow meadow, just one man and his dog. You were the one who did all of these things. So when you're picking these things, you know what you're looking for. Find the best people, the people who can work with you to make your dream a reality. Build a team that has the right talent, the right ability, has the right mix of understanding of the world around you. That's your internal team. This is the team, the house that Jack built. This is the team that you put together because you worked on getting a team that will support your vision, your internal team. The second team, though, the external team. Your client, whoever you are solving a problem for, whoever you are delivering solutions for, whoever you are selling your software to is a part of your team. We call them the external team. Now, when I do my consulting on teams, and Mr. Oyewole knows this as well, there are lots of diagrams around this thing. And what we're looking at is a small selection of what we did as a 5-day teaching and lecture series for NNPC. Your client is in the outer concentric circle as your external team. If you look at the guys we spoke of before, they're in the smaller group, the smaller circle, and there's you in the middle right there. So there's you, the internal team, and then there's this external team on the outside. Now you can see that the distance between you in the middle and the internal team is a smaller distance, right? But between you and the external team is a wider distance. And therefore, your influence over the wider external team is less than it would be over the internal team. These people, though, also need to be managed, also need to be led, need to be looked after, because without them, you have no business. Without them, you are not an entrepreneur, you're a pretender. Your client, super, super important. Some say the client is always right. I don't quite buy that. You want to hear more about why the client is not always right? Let's do another talk someday about service, and I'll tell you why the client is not always right. But that does not mean the client is not important. Very, very important member of your external team. The media. Oh, you just love them, don't you? Yeah? You do something you think is a fantastic idea, and then up steps Piers Morgan and tells you, what a load of rubbish, absolute nonsense. Exactly. The media, you have little control over them, but they're part of your team, because if you get the media on side, that's where your chief publicity officer now is the key person in your internal team who is closer to the media, who gets to talk media speak to the media people. Make sure that your communication outlet is fantastic, is always sending out the right message. And there's nothing that the outer media can pick up on your company to make a mess for you. The government. Oh, the government and the taxman and all of the machinery of government, they're part of your team. Like it or lump it, you've got to manage them. Now you're trying to manage this same government as to how you get out of a lockdown situation and get back to your shop that's been closed for the last 6, 7, 8 weeks. The government is a part of your team. You don't pay them. Well, you kind of pay them in taxes, but you don't pay them to be a part of your team. You pay them because they ask you to pay them, but they're a key part of your team. They set up policies and laws and rules and regulations that determine how your team is going to work, how your business is going to grow or not grow at all. They set up, they increase stamp duty, reduce stamp duty, they increase tax and business tax. And the government is a key part of your outer team. Competitors. Now you might think they're on the other side of the fence, or they're part of the team, because they're doing stuff to make sure that they get better than you are. So the relationship you have with them as an outer team member is you're looking at them. You know, it's the classic Google, versus anybody else, or the classic Microsoft versus everybody else. They're doing something, so we're going to do something. Get Google Hangouts, then you get Microsoft Teams. You get Microsoft Word, then you get Google Docs. The competition is a big part of your team. They drive you forward, you drive them forward. They make you sharper, they make you better. You also make them better. You're not looking to make them better, but you do. That healthy competition, sometimes it's unhealthy, but the competition is part of what makes your team wake up in the morning and get rejuvenated and get reinvigorated and say, we're going to beat those guys. We're going to wipe the floor with them come the end of time. When we give out our results and our numbers, we're going to beat them. And because you know you want to beat them, they're an important part of your team. They help to increase your focus. Your family. Now, you're close to your family, but as an entrepreneur, your family are on the outside group. Now, I know your wife is the COO, but that's the COO. You got to make a distinction. The COO is not your wife. The COO is the COO. So she's in the inner group as the COO and in the outer group as the wife. Your child, your husband, might be your HR officer, and you, the wife, you're the CEO. When you're talking HR, he's on the inner group. When you're talking babies and things like that, he's in the outer group. He's not in the business then. And you have to manage that relationship accordingly. Financiers and investors, we talked about that earlier. These are people who you are going to encourage to take some of their lifeblood, some of the money they've made with their own sweat and blood and put it into your idea, even if they don't know who you are. You've sold them a vision. You've told them of this beautiful future, but you've also got to manage them. They are very, very fidgety when a bit of news comes out from the SEC or somewhere and talks about some sector of the market going down, and that happens to be your sector where they just put $2 million last week. So you have to have constant communication with them. You have to manage this external team. This particular group of people need very careful management. And there they come again, the regulators. They are the people who hold, the rules and regulations over your business, whatever area you're working in. They are part of your team. You've got to speak with them. You've got to submit your accounts to them. You've got to submit your confirmation statements to them. You've got to submit your strategy documents to them. You've got to submit a whole lot of things to them you cannot do without them. As an entrepreneur, you need to understand all of these things. I hear, Mr. Oyewole was saying that towards the end, there's someone who's going to come up here and talk about the administration side of things, the whole area around, just understanding all of these rules and regulations. It will be a great thing to hear, because this person will talk about most of these people and how they interact with your business. The key question is, how do you work and influence this team? And there you go, all 10 of them went to more medal. Now, we've got some questions here, relevant questions that you need to ask as a team leader. Also questions that will be asked of you as well by people who are within your team. Simple questions you will be asking. What type of team do I need to build in order to achieve the goals in this extra competitive marketplace? What kind of team do I want? A fluid team, a solid team, a small team, a big team? What am I looking for? The second question you ask yourself, how do I get the best qualified, the most effective, and the most compatible people into this team? How do I do that? It's an important question. You've got to ask yourself that question. And there are answers to this question. I don't want to spend too much time on this slide, because on the questions on this slide alone, I could do 2-3 hours of coaching with a business owner. And therefore, it would not be helpful if I started to go into details about how these questions are answered. But I want you to know these kind of questions. And if you haven't asked yourself these questions, ask them again and again and again. How do I sustain this team? Making it continuously effective in delivery and relevant all the time in a changing business environment. It might be relevant today, but the world moves so quickly, it could be that you're losing relevance quickly tomorrow because the platform has changed, the way things work have changed. How do you sustain the team to do what it's doing, but also keep going, make the team increasingly relevant? Okay, so other questions I've got here. And these are from the team members. Now you need to expect these from people in your team, and you have to have the answers to them. What am I doing here? This might come up, halfway through a working cycle, a project. Someone is feeling a bit disillusioned. They're asking, why am I here? What am I actually doing in this place? You've got to know what to say. Go back to the goals, the vision, the mission. Be very clear again. Reiterate the person's importance, the person's relevance. We just talked about conflict with the question that Alexander asked. Can I work with these people? If I cannot work with these people, how do I go about it? But these are questions that will be asked by team members, and you've got to have the answers to them. Why would they not listen to me? How can I make the team better? Why does this team even exist in the first place? These will come up time and time again, either in times of difficulty or in times of change in particular. It could just be that a new person has joined the team, or you've got a new project that's not as significant as the last one, or not as juicy as the last one. Questions will arise. Be prepared for these questions. Be prepared to repeat the message. Never get tired of the message of who you are, what the vision is, and what you're selling, and why we are together, why we are such a great team. Never get tired of talking about it, because for many people, being a part of a team can be exciting, can be energizing, or it can be depressing and debilitating, sometimes almost in equal measure. And you are the one person who has to help to manage all of those things. But if you have that shared responsibility and shared ownership, there'll be more than one of you who can answer this question. But make no mistake, these questions will arise in a team. Be prepared, be ready to deal with them. The key question for you to answer with the culture is what kind of culture do we want to have in our team? What kind of culture? I just showed you the India cricket team. The one thing they have in this team that I've heard about from my friends in India is that this team is incredibly hardworking. Some of them are not as good a cricket player as the rest of them, but they work so hard. They work themselves to the bone. That's the culture. That's the identity. They're known for it. You never have an easy game playing against India. Doesn't matter how good you are, because of the work ethic of the team. Do you ask yourself, this is my team, my idea, our idea, our way of going forward. What is our culture? What are we known for? If people join this team, what are they joining? If people leave this team, what are they leaving? What are they missing? What's the culture of the team? Again, it's another big part of team coaching that can be done with different teams or with a large team or a small team, at a separate time. What could go wrong? Another key question. And on this one, I decided to go to Patrick Lencioni. He wrote a book. That book is actually called it's Team Dysfunction. And in that book, he talks about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. This pyramid is his pyramid. I give him the credit for that. It's not my pyramid. And you can see the 5 things is listed out there. Number 1, absence of trust. We've dealt with that. Number 2, fear of conflict. We've talked about that. Number 3, lack of commitment. No buy-in and no commitment to decisions despite initial disagreement. We've talked about that. Number 4, avoidance of accountability. No group accountability or ownership. We've talked about that. Number 5, inattention to results. Team is focused on the success and getting results at the best of times, but sometimes they don't attend to the results. They're not focused. Again, we've talked about that, getting results being the key. What results are expected of this team? I brought this up here just to show you that these 5 dysfunctions are seen as the key 5 dysfunctions in a team. Excuse me. But we've talked about all of these things, but I wanted to show you this little graph. Oh yeah, 5 is always good sometimes. And finally, we're just going to finish on this. How do we get from okay in the team to excellent? So what is excellence? What are we looking for? We're looking for that outstanding quality in a team. Your team needs to be extremely or unusually good. Have a quality of consistently producing superior performance or service, or the quality of delivering exceptional value that exceeds regular expectation. Any of those 3 or a combination of these 3 is a definition of excellence. That's what you want your team to be. What do? Are you a media person? Are you an idea generator? Are you a computer person? Are you, what's your business? What's your idea? You want to be outstanding. You want to be unusually good at delivering good results. You want to be consistent in producing superior performance. Whatever your culture is, whoever is on your team, whoever you've invited to be part of your team, excellence is your pursuit. It's where you want to be. You want to play at this level. It's those who play at this level that we are looking at and using as our examples. Those who play just below this level, they're part of the crowd. But the top 5% are the guys who get this pat down. And wherever you are at this stage, I promise you, this is where you want to get to. So we do some things, 1 or 2 things to encourage excellence in a high-performing entrepreneurial team. And the first thing we do is always ask, whatever we do, is this the best we can do? Ask yourself that. Every time you do something, ask yourself, is this the best we can do? Can we do better? And I think I sent out something earlier in the week, that no matter how good you are, no matter how brilliant you are, no matter how much shoulder you've applied to the plow, it's always true and always fair to say that we can do more, we can get better. And don't just get better because someone says you should get better. Don't just get better because management is expecting it or because it makes you look good. Get better because it's the thing to do. Get better. Let your team be better because it's the way to deliver value all the time. Try to bridge the gap between what your client is expecting and what your team understands these expectations to be. There's sometimes a disconnect between these two. If there's a disconnect between these two, you will not produce excellence because Mrs. Client or Mr. Client will say, I'm not happy with what you produced, even though you thought you were producing the right thing. So your expectation, or rather your perception of the client's expectation must be equal to the client's expectation. In other words, know what the client wants, get it right 100% of the time. Bridge the gap between that same perception of expectation and the service that you actually deliver. There are times when you think, well, here's what we're supposed to do, and then you don't actually even do that. Try to avoid that. Make sure there's no gap between the expectations of what you understand of it and what you do produce. Try as much as possible to produce your best every single time, all the time. Also, bridge the gap between the service you deliver as an entrepreneur and the industry service or standards of excellence. If you're producing certain things, but the industry already has a higher standard, please do the very best you can, you and your team, to make sure you at least meet the standard and look for ways to innovate, to exceed that standard if you can. But at the very least, you must meet the industry standard of excellence to have a high-performing entrepreneurial team. There's no point being an entrepreneur and producing substandard stuff. Doesn't work. That's why businesses fail, because they don't have the right stuff. And they're not taking care to produce the right stuff. Also, make sure there's a bridge in the gap between the industry standard of excellence and your team's plan for improvement. Every time you do something, I know you have a plan to improve. You looked at your last product, your last radio show, your last book, your last magazine cover, and and you thought, I can get better. But make sure that you're getting better is taking you past what the industry calls good or excellent. And finally, make sure that your team improvement plan and your ongoing delivery pressure, there's a bridge in the gap between the two. Because sometimes the pressure of delivery, having to do stuff on an ongoing basis for your clients, can negate the effectiveness of your improvement plan. So you never actually get to improve because you're constantly doing things at the old level and you're not able to move forward into a new way of doing things. Again, for all of these levels of expectation, there's a whole lot of coaching behind it that can be had at a later time. Set quality measures. That is pretty much what we've talked about, so I'm not going to go through this slide in that detail, but just to say to you, every single task that you undertake must have a quality measure. It's either done very well, done okay, or not done well, but you must know what that looks like. Know what good looks like, know what excellent looks like, and know what poor looks like. Because if you don't know what they look like, you'll confuse them and you will produce something wrong at some stage. And the way you know all of these things and get these things properly measured, you have the right skill, the right knowledge available in the team, the right resources, including time that can be devoted to quality, the right expectations from the requester, and also the value of the outcome to your team. Very important. Have quality measures set. Make sure that you always do relevant work. You know what your aim is, you know what your goal is, you know where you're going as a team. You've built this team. And then somebody comes up with something that is really rubbish work, junk work, and you take it on because it looks good. No, avoid that. It might look like you need the money, you need quick money, but try not to get distracted. If you see it as another route to another plan, maybe, that's fine. But if it's not relevant, if it's not helping you, don't take on work just because they might pay you some more money. Make sure that your energy is spent doing what will add value to your team, add value to the client. A common source of failure, like I write here, is energy is spent doing what nobody cares about. And therefore, you're not investing the right amount of time, ability, or knowledge and know-how in delivering the right value to the right client at the right time. And overall, the team suffers, the vision suffers, the organization suffers, and like we said, the bad buck then ends up at your door. And you want to avoid that. Crucial point coming up here, plan for output. Don't just plan for activity. I was listening to an interview earlier today. The football manager, Martin O'Neill, was talking about an ex-footballer he managed at Aston Villa, Gabriel Agbondaho, a Nigerian British footballer. He said, when I met Gabriel, he was so quick, so fast, he could run past everything. And I had to tell him, mate, don't just move about. Don't mistake motion for actual football. He had to coach the guy to start doing things. He said, stop for a while, think of a cross the ball in me, and then go back to the center line. Do something useful. Don't just run around with the ball. Avoid planning for planning's sake. Avoid activity for activity's sake. Plan first, and most importantly, for output and result. Value, value, value all the time. Avoid team meetings that achieve nothing. You know those team meetings that you have, and the resolution of the meeting is to have another meeting? Avoid those ones. You know, reports that you write in triplicate on 17 slides of whatever, and it says, we spent 6 months working on this. That's a rubbish report. The real question is, what did you achieve? Plan for output, plan for value-adding output. And I promise you, your team will be a fantastic team. And there I am going to stop because my time is running out, has run out, I say. And so, any questions, please, and any comments, please. I want to say thank you, Mr. Oyewale, for having me on this platform. Thank you to everyone who has joined. It's been absolutely wonderful serving you tonight. Any questions, please, I'll take them now.
You are very welcome, sir. You're very much welcome. And this has been very, very inspiring. So we have a question from, and I apologize if I don't pronounce your name properly, Khalid. So Khalid, I'm going to allow you to speak now. So please feel free to unmute yourself.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
We can hear you, sir.
Yes, thank you very much, Professor, and thank you, Omi, for the presentation. My question is, it has been very enlightening session, by the way. My question is, how can you build a team of achievers more than doers? You know, there's two types of persons. There's a doer who comes to 9 to 5, and there's an achiever. Now, how can you pick achievers in order to reach the success and get to your targets? It's not easy, very challenging.
Thank you so much. Good question, not easy. It's just like what we were saying a few minutes ago, planning for output and not just activity. Like you said, the doers, they come to have activity, come do stuff, write a lot of reports, get involved in a lot of activity, but no output. You want to avoid that, right? How do you do that? I mentioned somewhere along the line, you have to be the coach in your team. When not everybody will join your team as an out-and-out achiever. Some people are actually very good at dreaming up plans and strategies and are probably not the greatest of achievers or instant action achievers. It doesn't make them useless to the team. They have a value to that team. So you have to now class one thing. There are going to be some people who get the boss. They are always putting output on a daily basis. Leave them be, encourage them to be who they are. For those people who take 3-4 weeks to get themselves into motion, you need to coach them. Coach them about value. Coach them about being a solution. Because if all you are is the discussion about a solution, you're not doing much. Let them know that they need to be a solution, part of the solution. And here's one thing you can also do to help them along the way. Let's say I'm one of those dreamer guys, right? I can't really, do things very quickly. Maybe what I can do is I know how to write emails a lot, or I know how to do a lot of admin work. Set me some tasks on admin work, right? Let my output be 4 emails a day, or my output be, so give me, as part of my coaching, blocks of work where at the end of it, I produce an output. Now, let me understand what value this email has to the bottom line. Because this email, when it goes to the CEO of Google, it's going to get them to set up a meeting that is going to get you the business. So when that business happens, you say to the person who does the emails, mate, What a great achievement. Your emails are fantastic. You write the meanest and baddest emails on the planet. He starts to think, I achieved something. And therefore, is no longer just part of, I'm doing things, but I'm part of the achievement structure. Then start moving that person up, different tasks, and you start to coach them. With each block of tasks, they need to produce something. When they produce it, big celebration. You're coaching the culture and the concept of achievement into the person. The person stops being a run-of-the-mill email writer, becomes an effective communicator in the life of the business. Not everyone is an instant out there producer, but don't forget something. I'm going to finish on this. In your body, you have got visible parts. Your arms are probably very strong. You might have a very strong back and everything. You see what your hands can do. And so they achieve instantly. You want to be in a fight with somebody. You throw a good punch, a mean hook, you can see what your hand is doing. But can you tell what your spleen did in that movement? Can you tell what part your liver played in throwing that punch? You can't. But without your spleen or your liver, you don't get to throw that punch. Those are the people that are working behind the scenes. They might not be out there as achievers, but you need to recognize what they do. The email writer, the one who comes in and does all the admin. Encourage them, teach them that what they do is an achievement in itself. And then they have the mentality of an achiever. Does that work, sir?
Thank you very much. Very clear.
Thank you. You're welcome.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions? Please feel free to raise up your hand now. Okay, so the question I would like to ask, sir, is some of the things, some of the experiences I've had with entrepreneurs and business owners is that they seem to find it quite difficult. I mean, going to along with what some of the things that you've already said, they seem to find it quite difficult to communicate their expectations. So it seems like there might be some clearly stated metrics, and there might be some invisible metrics as well that are causing a lot of frustration. For example, I read a book about a gentleman who was a top sales guy, was hitting all his figures and everything like that, but his boss was increasingly frustrated about him. And the reason is because the start time is at 8 a.m. The guy shows up to work exactly at 8 a.m. And it was like, I would expect that he would show up at 7:30, do all his admin stuff to start work at 8 a.m. bang. And then they asked him, okay, have you actually communicated this to him? How does an entrepreneur, a leader, a business owner communicate both what constructive strategies can they put in place to communicate both the clearly stated metrics and the invisible metrics, both at the team level and at the individual level as well? Yeah,
so there are, thank you so much, good question. There are these invisible expectations that they happen everywhere. You just expect something else. So, you're always clear about what the ones and zeros are, but the culture type questions, the how we get to delivering value type questions are not always clearly stated. And even if you try to state them clearly, they're always understood subjectively. Each person understands those kind of HR type, soft skills type expectations from behind a certain veil, the veil of their own understanding, the veil of their own experience. I used to have a boss who was kind of really okay with this kind of thing. I know I deliver value anyway. So I can roll in at 9:30, with a cup of coffee in my hand because I know I can do things. That might be one person's expectations, but someone is thinking, mate, the rest of the team arrived at 7:30. How can you just roll in at 9:30? How do you work on this? The best way to do this is when you're dealing with people as a group, speak to them as a whole group, yes. But then take time to contact and connect with each individual. Try to understand them. Because like I said, people understand these very clear ones and zeros, but the other things are understood from behind the veil. Connect one-to-one with each of these individuals understand where they're coming from. They might say, you know what, I don't really get this thing, or I think I just run at different times. Start to show them the expectations by talking to them one-on-one. It's not a formal meeting. You just talk about these things, about your dreams, your desires. I'm looking for this kind of team. And also, as we're going through life as well, we're going to start having these early morning 7:30 coffee calls as well. And in these coffee calls, we're going to be talking about the celebrations of who did what last week. And therefore, our prize giving for the week is going to be 7:30 a.m. on a Friday, you know. And you start to work on an individual level with them, understand why they are kind of laid back and kind of wearing the slippers to work, but also throwing in these ideas you have and starting to put cultures in place that encourage them to come in at an earlier time, even if they think they're just doing you a favor. You're pulling them into the culture because that's what they do. They're missing out on stuff. They're running at 9:30 and there's pictures everywhere of everybody having breakfast at 7:30 in the canteen. Oops. So it's a work in progress. You can't beat it into people. You can't make them do it by insisting they do it. You're going to create a bit of a fraction between the two of you, but connect with them and then start to put in place culture, team culture that bonds the team together, that they want to be a part of. You know they like going out, you know, for a beer afterwards. They like beer, even though you don't drink beer. So you decide, even though you know you're going to have some coffee, you say, everybody, 8:30 p.m., the dog and the donkey, whatever it is. Now, he wants to be there, but he always leaves at 5:30. What do you think he's going to do? He's going to wait. That's how you work it. It's one of those testing challenges that you work through the life of the team.
That's really amazing. Thanks for that answer. I think this will be the final question here. So how do you fire a member of a team? How do you know that it's time to let a team member go? And how do you communicate that gracefully?
Okay. One of my worst experiences as a young manager at Citibank was when I was told almost half of my team had to be made redundant. In that team, there were two Black men, myself and the guy, the defects manager. I was the test manager. One of those who had been selected or whose role had been selected for redundancy. I had to deliver the news to him. I had to go for coaching on that. I was an up-and-coming manager. I had to be coached on exactly what to say. I had no idea. How am I going to tell him it's not required? And oh, by the way, I'll be taking on the duties of the defect manager because we're cutting costs. It was my first foray into this negative messaging, you know, that you have to do as a manager, and it is your responsibility. And now, that's one thing when you're told to do it, but when you're the entrepreneur and you own the team and it's your decision, it's doubly difficult. Because you can't even hide behind the skirt of the boss and say, oh, it's Madame that said I should sack you. This is like you saying, you know, I'm letting you go. And, you know, you could try all the sandwich messages, you know, say something nice, toss the bad news in the middle and follow with something nice. Don't worry, everybody knows that trick. So that's not going to work either. I'm going to tell you the simple truth, be honest about it and be very sensitive. It's never a good time, even if it's for misconduct on that person's part. It's never a good time to sever a relationship, however soiled or soured that relationship may be. So be careful, be sensitive to who the person is. If the person is the kind of person who's going to take it anyway, still take care to deliver the message within the law. Within the law, say the right things. If you say you are redundant, he comes back and sacks you, or comes back to charge you or take you to the tribunal, say to him that the role is no longer valuable or viable or valid, and therefore that role is being phased out, and you as the role holder, unfortunately, might have to move, you have to move on and find something else. Or say his performance, unfortunately, as has been witnessed through the life cycle of the last 4 or 5 one-to-ones, has not met the target, and we've lost business as a result, I have to make this difficult decision. I understand it's difficult. I do not want to do this, but I have to do it. You understand what this vision is. Either way, make sure you use the right words. You say it with the appropriate level of sensitivity. You are open and honest. Don't gloat, even if this person had just been putting his finger right down your nose and, you know, this is your chance to, boom, get him back and send him out to oblivion. Don't do that. You know, still be sensitive, be extra, ultra professional and respectful about it. In life, at any time, the boot can be on the other shoe, or on the other foot rather. So don't gloat about it. Don't be unprofessional about it. Use the right words. Keep within the law. And I think that's how to do it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very much. This has been very, very insightful. It's been very, very helpful. I think there've been a lot of complimentary messages as well. I've got one from Shifra. Thank you for the meeting today. I've got many messages from TK Williams as well, saying thank you for today. So thank you all for attending. The recording will be made available to you as well. And also thank you for those who are watching on YouTube as well. Please, we say a very big thank you. We're going to make the information of Mr. Yomi Odukoya available to you as well. So you can always reach out to him for maybe if you want to offer personal coaching as well. That would be very, very helpful. And also, we're going to have the next session next week, same time, 6 p.m. And that is going to be on identifying and reaching the right audience with Anna Oyewole. Thank you all for attending. See you next week. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you. Right. I see. Thank you so much, sir.
No worries. Thank you.
That was really good. God bless.
That was really amazing. That was really amazing.
I enjoyed it, man. I really enjoyed that. That's fantastic stuff. Yeah, amazing. Well done. I can't wait for next week now.
Definitely. Same here. Same here. All right, sir.
All right, we'll see that. All right, cheers. Bye.